of my ePortfolio, prepare for ETEC 590 in the MET program at the University of British Columbia. I am excited to show you what I have been working on during my studies in the program. But first, a few technical details to cover. This ePortfolio is hosted through mrboulevard.ca, which will serve as a larger representation of my work as an educator. Not only will you find my portfolio on the site, but also materials that can be used for professional development. I will eventually have a featured blog where I will share out the tools that I am using in my classroom. The portfolio can be navigated in two ways. One is with the top navigation bar, and the second is with buttons on each page. Either way, it'll take you to the same locations. Now to access my MET portfolio, you can either click on the link at the top of the screen or on the link at the bottom of the screen here. On the main page for my ePortfolio, I've included the guided tour video, which you are watching right now, and a button that will take you to the introduction page for the project. You will notice that these buttons are similar throughout the whole site to make organization and navigation easy for the reader. Moving on to the introduction page, I've explained my purpose and audience, and my overall goals for the ePortfolio and the website. I state that the ePortfolio is a tool for reflection and consideration of what one has learned, as well as a vehicle for others to investigate change and reflection in their own practice. Next, I will discuss the overarching metaphor for the site, which is training for the MET marathon. I had considered a number of metaphors for the site, however I landed on running as it has many parallels to the MET program and is of great personal interest to me. As I was taking this final course in the program, I was also training for the Rock and Roll Las Vegas Marathon. So I was doing two of these things at the same time, therefore making it able for me to reflect on my time in the Met, as well as making sure I had what I needed to be successful in my race. So I've narrowed it down. There's a lot of sections to this page, and I was thinking, well, should I narrow it down? But you know what I realized? I realized there's no shortcuts in marathon training, but there's also no shortcuts when taking a master's program. So let me run down the different sections of training for the MET marathon. So the first section is actually choosing a race and actually registering, then having the proper attire. After that, you figure out what is your training plan, and then you have to think about how do you track your progress. Once you figure all that out, you actually have to get out there and do it and actually run or actually create information using education technology. Once you do that, you have to consider the importance of rest, looking at cross-training and why that works, then finally tapering down to race day, and then finally race check-in and race day. I have decided to represent each section representing sort of the class order that I have taken them in the program. I feel as if the order in which the classes are taken greatly reflects the way in which my MET experience was shaped, and that the connections between each course influences my understanding of the content. In terms of the theories that drive this portfolio, I was really taken back by von Glaserfeld's assertion that the task of the educator is not to dispense knowledge, but to provide students with opportunities and incentives to build it up. I feel as if I've embodied these ideas of constructivism throughout my ePortfolio, both in its design as well as the artifacts that I have chosen to represent my learning. Now, each page in the portfolio is represented in a similar fashion. So if we notice, we have two buttons. We have the introduction button, which will take you back. The buttons on the left take you to the previous part of the portfolio. The buttons on the right take you to the next part of the portfolio. So if I click on choosing a race here, this brings me to how I actually consider taking the MET program, and I talk a little bit about my application of getting into the program and what my ideas actually were. As you make your way through each part of the site, you'll notice that the artifacts are presented in similar formats and are shown in a variety of videos, images, documents, links, and presentations. All videos are hyperlinked and can be viewed directly on the page alongside each artifact. I provided my reflection on the impact that the artifact has had, not only on my understandings within the course, but how I have actually implemented them within my teaching practice. As I've said before, there are many different sections to my portfolio, but then again, this just talks about how there are no shortcuts to training for a marathon or completing a master's program. Further, the overarching metaphor only discusses the training process in itself, as the actual race is representative of what I can now do with my learning experience after my program. As I work my way through the site here, you can see it's very easy to navigate. And as we get into race check-in and race day, here you'll find my final reflections. And I've decided to give my final reflections in a bit of a different format. Instead of writing them traditionally on the page, I created a sort of a non-linear way of highlighting the big ideas that I have experienced throughout the course. This is really inspired by what we had learned in ETEC 540, the changing spaces of reading and writing with multiliteracies and implementing new technologies in terms of how we represent our information. On this page, you can also find my assessment rubric, and then my references are also located on their own page right over here. Now, to follow up to see what I'm doing after the program, you can do that anywhere on this site on the navigation bar on the top of the page. And if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can always click on the Get in Touch button right here. Thank you for watching and enjoy reading my training plan for the Met Marathon.